Slide on in. Gather round.
Don't modify.
Gather round, sinners. Gather round.
Goodness. Don't even start that.
I see you're not wearing your WWJD bracelet. If you guys don't know, these are these funny YouTube videos this guy does about what people think about Christianity, like misconceptions. Pretty funny. You'll see me reference them a lot.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what they're called? Their YouTube channel?
Gosh, I really don't remember, but I'll throw in the comments after I look, because I don't right off the top of my head. We used them in a sermon once, it was pretty funny.
Hi! Welcome!
Alright, so, just in case you're joining us for the first time, Thursdays are Bible study days, and we hold the Bible studies at 7, so there's no Everyday Hope, on Thursdays or on Sundays, because those are the days that we need to either be in church or in God's Word, or both. You know. So that's why we kind of keep those days a little separate. And we're also reading the story for kids. The story is the Bible in chapter book form, but it stays true to the Word of God and to the NIV version of the Bible. So the we chose the kids one because most people in our congregation at the time are very new to Christianity, new to the Bible, and they found the Bible itself and the story hard to comprehend, and so we wanted to overcome all obstacles and take away from how intimidating the Bible can seem to somebody new. And so we thought we would get into the story for kids and get the basics, get the stories through, get a quick read through, and then move on to something more advanced. And we already have an idea of what we'll be doing for the next portion after this, and we just got the permission from the developers to use that. So that'll be really exciting, but we got a ways to go still. But I just want to let you guys know that it gets even better after this. Even better. But if you're with us last week, we were in chapter 3, which is Joseph, titled From Slave to Deputy Pharaoh. And I'll ask you guys the trivia questions as we talk about every week. So just give another moment or two for people to join. If you're with me, bear with me. Just give a minute for everybody to get together so we can just discuss the trivia review last week. And while we're waiting for everybody, let me just give you a quick review of what we've done so far. So in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Then there was Adam and Eve, right? The first people. They committed sin against God by picking the fruit because the serpent deceived them. God punished all of them, kicked them all out of the garden. And because of Adam's choice and Eve's, we live in a fallen world full of sin because we were given free will. We chose sin. Sin's been in the world ever since then. It got so bad that there was only one righteous man left, Noah, and his family, 3 sons with 3 wives and his wife, born in an ark that Noah had made with 2 of every kind of animal. Everything on earth was wiped out in the flood. And then after that, we had Jacob, who was a descendant of Noah, and Jacob, this is several generations later, had a son, and his son's name was Joseph. So then we read about the story of Joseph. So let's get the trivia started. So does anybody remember why Joseph was hated by his brothers? Why was Joseph hated by his brothers? Give you guys a second to think about an answer. And I'll take 2 different answers for this. Go ahead.
There was a dream that his brothers all bowed down to him, and his father favorited him. So they were all jealous.
Yeah. So the main undertone is jealousy, and it is mainly because he was the favorite of the father. That's what sparked them disliking Joseph. And, his father made him a very colorful, very amazing robe to dress him in, which is a sign of honor. And that's what really set the brothers into full jealousy mode. And then what was the icing on the cake was Joseph revealing the dream of his father and brothers bowing down to him, and that was what really just tipped him over. So it was a combination of things, but it all stemmed from jealousy and pride. So, what did the brothers do to to Joseph to get their quote-unquote revenge, or to spite Joseph. So how did the brothers, I guess the best way to phrase it, act out against Joseph? What did they do? Babe, do you remember?
They pushed him into a well, and then they sold him into slavery to Egyptians, and then they told their father, they killed a sheep for no reason at all.
It was a goat, but yeah.
A goat. And smeared his robe all in the sheep's blood, goat's blood, and told their father that he was mauled by an animal.
Yeah. Do you know what they wanted to do to him?
Kill him?
They wanted to kill him, but one of his brothers, and forgive me, I don't remember his name, but one of the brothers wasn't as spiteful and had a heart for Joseph a little bit, and he was like, let's not kill him, guys, but everybody wanted to. He's like, we would get nothing, let's just sell him as a slave. So he was nearly killed. Now, can anyone tell me what Joseph went to jail for? Why was Joseph sent to jail?
Because his wife, the Pharaoh's wife, made a pass on Joseph, and he denied her, and when he ran out, he left his robe, was it, or jacket, there, and then she told Pharaoh that he made a move on her.
Close.
Nope.
Potiphar's wife, not Pharaoh's.
Oh.
So close. Potiphar was head of a large portion of, I want to say it was the builders or security or something like that. But Potiphar was fairly high up as far as the Egyptians were concerned in their hierarchy. And he was head of Potiphar's household over several of his slaves as well. And it was Potiphar's wife. And Potiphar, has doubts. It seemed like, the feel I got, Potiphar had doubts on whether or not Joseph was lying because he'd always been honest. So he wanted to trust Joseph in a way, but of course he couldn't take the word of a slave over his wife. And so Joseph was imprisoned. Then Joseph had a gift, and Joseph had a gift from God. He constantly gave God honor for it, but this was the gift that got him out of prison. What was his gift? What was the ability God gave him? Now, God was with Joseph in all he did, but he had this particular gift that you could give two different explanations or words to.
He could explain what dreams meant.
Yes, he could interpret dreams, or you could even call it a gift of prophecy to an extent, because he would interpret prophetic dreams of the future typically. And so Pharaoh has been bothered by a dream, and being bothered by a dream so much, the person that Joseph was in prison with that got out, which was the cup holder, wine tester, told Pharaoh about this man who interpreted his dream. And then Pharaoh pulled him out of prison, talked to him, was so impressed by him, he put him in charge, and then Joseph's fame kind of rose from there. Do you guys remember what Pharaoh's dream was and what happened that Joseph was put in charge? Okay.
Was it like 7 healthy crops and 7 unhealthy crops, and then 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows?
Being eaten by 7 skinny cows, yeah. So it was 7 years of a big harvest with plenty, and then it was 7 years of little to nothing. So 7 years of famine followed the 7 years of plentifulness. So Joseph told Pharaoh, what we do is we take 1/7 of the crops or more, depending on how much there is, and we store it away. So he kept storing it away so it would be prepared for the bad year. So it would be, evenly separated. And it was very clever of Joseph. So they stored away and had enough for that time. Now, this is what the whole story of Joseph is really about. Can anyone tell me what confrontation took place and what Joseph's choice was that he made in the confrontation? It's at the end of the book, if you guys remember.
his brothers came to ask for food, and he forgave them and gave them food, or invited them to move to Egypt and provide them with food.
Food, land, everything. And he got to see his father, Jacob, again, which was renamed Israel before he died, and buried him, and was able to really provide for his family. And he forgave his brothers after what they did. He at first tested them to be sure they were sorry, and kind of wanted to see his father still alive, and kind of tested the waters. But he forgave them, and he even gave them his wealth, and shared his honor with them. And obviously his prophetic dream in the beginning came true when his brothers bowed down before him, seeing him as just the sub-ruler of Egypt. So that's it for our review questions. Awesome job. You were able to answer most of those, guys. The trivia questions really help us to recall and retain the information we're reading. It's just a little fun way to play. We'll do 2-2. Alright, chapter 4, Out of Egypt. And you can guess who this is about. It's about Moses. So, let me see if it says this. Okay, so just kind of touch on it. But just to give you a time frame, I believe, if I'm correct in saying this, there's approximately about 400 years between Joseph and Moses, just to give you guys a time frame. So, if I had to estimate, that's probably like between 6 and 8 different rulers of Egypt. So there's been several generations. So that's where we're at this point in the story. Jacob and Joseph died. Many years went by. Soon there were thousands and thousands of Hebrews living in Egypt. Then a new king came to power in Egypt. He didn't know anything about Joseph. "Look," he said to his people, "the Israelites are far too many for us. Come, we must deal with them carefully. If we don't, they will increase their numbers even more. Then if war breaks out, they will join our enemies, and they will fight against us and leave our country." So the Egyptians put the slave drivers over the people of Israel. The slave drivers beat them down and made them work hard. Then Pharaoh gave an order to all of his people. He said, "You must throw every baby boy Hebrew into the Nile River, but let every baby girl live." A man and a woman from the tribe of Levi got married. She became pregnant and had a son by him. She saw that her baby was a fine child, so she hid him for 3 months. After that, she couldn't hide him any longer, so she got a basket that was made out of the stems of tall grass. She coated it with tar, then she placed the child in it. She put the basket in the tall grass that grew along the bank of the Nile River. The child's sister was very far away. She wanted to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile River to take a bath. Her attendants were walking along the bank of the river. She saw the basket in the tall grass, so she sent one of her slaves to get it. When she opened it, she saw the baby. He was crying. She felt sorry for him. They have a female voice. "This is one of the Hebrew babies."
No, don't.
She said. Then his sister spoke to Pharaoh's daughter. She asked, "Do you want me to go and get one of the Hebrew women? She can nurse the baby for you." "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby, nurse him for me, I'll pay you." So the women took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses. She said, "I pulled him out of the water." Names had deeper meaning back then. What's your name? Moses grew up. One day he went out to where his own people were. He watched them while they were hard at work. So, to contrary belief, let me just pause for a second and say, Moses always knew he was a Hebrew. I mean, the Prince of Egypt is a great movie. I love it. It was very well done. It stuck true to the Bible, to the sense of turning into a movie that was enjoyable for all ages. But one of the flaws is he always knew he was a Hebrew. He knew where he came from. So when it says he wanted to see his people hard at work, he's talking of the Hebrews. He knew it was his people. But he was raised as a prince, if you so call it. He saw an Egyptian hitting a Hebrew man. The man was one of Moses' own people. Moses looked around and didn't see anyone, so he killed the Egyptian and hid his body in the sand. Second thing I want to talk about. When Moses killed a man, it wasn't he accidentally pushed him off a bridge like in the movie or what people might think. Moses killed out of cold blood. He killed this man because this man was going to kill the Hebrew. So he could have beaten him up, being the pole, but he killed him because he had fear of word getting out that he was siding with the Hebrews or fought for them. And so he killed that man. He buried him in the sand of fear of getting caught. Now when Moses runs away shortly from, not to give anything away, from Egypt, it's because he got caught and was going to be condemned to death. Not because he just wanted to get away and didn't trust Egypt. No, he ran because he got in trouble.
Moses was afraid people knew what he had done, so he left Egypt. He went to Midian, where he met a family of shepherds. He got married and became a shepherd too. Moses was taking care of the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro. Jethro was a priest of Midian. Moses led the flock to the western side of the desert. He came to Horeb. It was the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him from inside a burning bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire, but it didn't burn up. So Moses thought, I'll go over and see this strange sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? The Lord saw that Moses had gone over to look. So God spoke to him from inside the bush. He called out, Moses.
That's not a God voice.
I can't do it. Moses! Is that better?
Terrible.
Here I am, Moses said. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals. This place you are standing on is holy ground.
Pause. So one thing I want to talk about, and it's really cool to think about. So one of the things we talk about is the holiness of God, and people, in the Bible, they say if you see God, you will die. So the reason being, God is so holy that his presence automatically condemns us. So the way I saw comparison that's really cool is it compares the sun to God's holiness. So literally, the closer you get to the sun, the hotter it gets. And when you get to a certain distance from the sun, you're going to burn up. No matter what you are, everything burns, right? So the same is with God's holiness. Being in his presence and getting too close, his holiness, perfectness is overwhelming. It would literally kill us to be overwhelmed by that. So that's why he yells to Moses, stop, don't come any closer, because it's for his own good not to come any closer to God. He tells him to remove his feet for the ground he's standing on is holy. So, you got to picture like fighting the sun's rays being burned up. That's God's presence. It'd be overwhelming to us. Even from a fire being spoken from a bush, and just like, a fraction of God's presence, not even him in his complete form, though God can take any form, obviously, but that's the reason why Moses couldn't come closer and why he was kind of overwhelmed by God's presence.
I am the God of your father. I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Isaac, and I am the God of Jacob. When Moses heard that, he turned his face away. He was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I have seen my people suffer in Egypt. I have heard them cry out because of their slave drivers. I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to save them from the Egyptians. I will bring them up out of the land. I will bring them into a good land. It has a lot of room. It is a land that has plenty of milk and honey. And now Israel's cry for help has reached me. I have seen the way the Egyptians are beating them down. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh. I want you to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. They are my people. But Moses spoke to God. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, he said. Who am I that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God said, I will be with you. I will give you the miraculous sign. It will prove that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, all of you will worship me on this mountain. Moses spoke to the Lord. He said, Lord, I've never been a good speaker, and I haven't gotten any better since you spoke to me. I don't speak very well at all. The Lord said to him, "Who makes a man able to talk? Who makes him unable to hear or speak? Who makes him able to see? Who makes him blind? It is I, the Lord. Now go, I will help you speak. I will teach you what to say." But Moses said, "Lord, please, send someone else to do it." Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses.
Don't test God.
He said, "What about your brother, Aaron, and Levite?
The Levite.
Levite. I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you. He will be glad to see you. Speak to him. Put your words in his mouth. Tell him what to say. I will help both of you speak. I will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you. He will be like your mouth, and you will be like God to him. But take this wooden staff in your hand. You will be able to do miraculous signs with it." Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh's palace and asked him to let the Hebrews go, but Pharaoh didn't want to let the slaves go. In fact, he was so angry that Moses and Aaron even dared to ask him to release the slaves that he decided to punish the Hebrews and make them work even harder.
Brutal. Then the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to get this done here. Pharaoh's heart is very stubborn. He refuses to let the people go. In the morning, Pharaoh will go down to the water. Go and wait on the bank of the Nile to meet him. Take in your hand the wooden staff that turned into a snake. Say to Pharaoh, "The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to you. He says, 'Let my people go. Then they will be able to worship me in the desert.' But up to now, you have not listened. The Lord says, 'Here is how you will know that I am the Lord. I will strike the water of the Nile River with the staff that is in my hand. The river will turn into blood. The fish of the river will die. The river will stink. The Egyptians will not be able to drink its water.'" Pretty good Cowboys, right? The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, get your staff. Reach your hand out over the waters of Egypt. The streams, the waterways, ponds, and all the lakes will turn to blood. There will be blood everywhere in Egypt. It will even be in the wooden buckets and stone jars." Another thing I want to talk about is, if you look at a lot of the plagues of Egypt, by a lot, I can name two. But two of them can be parallel to what the old Pharaoh did to the Hebrews by killing all the firstborn males. So the Nile was turned to the blood that the Pharaoh had spilt, and the last one is the death of all firstborns in Egypt, which seems harsh, but he's literally just, weighing a scale like, it's exactly what you guys did, and you let it get to this point kind of thing. So, Moses and Aaron did exactly as the Lord had commanded them. Aaron held out his staff in front of Pharaoh and his officials. He struck the water of the Nile River, and all the water turned into blood. The fish in the Nile died. The river smelled so bad the Egyptians could not drink its water. There was blood everywhere in Egypt. But the Egyptians' magicians did the same things by doing their magic tricks. So Pharaoh's heart became stubborn. He wouldn't listen to Moses and Aaron. Just as the Lord had said, even that miracle didn't change Pharaoh's mind. In fact, he turned around and went into his palace. All of the Egyptians dug holes near the Nile River to get drinking water. They couldn't drink water from the river. Even though God turned all the water to blood, Pharaoh wouldn't let the Israelites go. So God sent frogs to cover the land. But Pharaoh still wouldn't let the Israelites go. When God sent more punishment, plagues of gnats, flies, animal disease, sores called boils, hail, locusts, and darkness, Pharaoh still wouldn't let the Israelites leave. He wanted to keep the Israelites as slaves no matter what Moses said or God did. Pharaoh was determined to say no. So his heart was very hard. It talks about the only unforgivable sin, and not unforgivable in the sense we think if you do it, you can never come back. It's the fact that once your heart is hardened against God, as in you'll never turn back to God, there's nothing you can do. You're lost. Just like the Pharisees. So, let's think about the miracles of this real quick too. So God was able to send frogs. He was able to send locusts. He was able to really just take away their livestock, their grains, their food. Everything he did was taking something away, you know? The boils over their skin take away their beauty, take away their health, and the hail destroyed a lot of their buildings and whatnot. The darkness covered the land, so there was no light. So, I mean, it's just obvious that, you know, Pharaoh was just taking God was taking a little more and a little more from Pharaoh, but Pharaoh continued to harden his heart. So God sent one last plague, and it was the worst one of all. God was going to take away the oldest son from every Egyptian family. He told Moses to have the Israelites smear lamb's blood over their door so that this awful plague wouldn't happen to them. That night, all through Egypt, mothers and fathers cried as they discovered their oldest son had died. The plague killed Pharaoh's son too. God sent the angel of death. I don't know who the angel of death is. We can speculate. Sounds really cool though. Like, I don't know. I heard there's something like awesome coming down.
Jude said that if he gets to ask God one question when he goes to heaven, that he wants to ask to see what the angel of death looks like.
I'm with on that. I'm totally curious what the angel of death looks like. Like Grim Reaper or majestic looking, like you never see it coming. Like, that's beautiful, I'm dead. Who knows?
During the night, Pharaoh sent for Moses and Aaron. He said to them, "Get out of here. You and the Israelites leave my people. Go, worship the Lord, just as you have asked. Go, take your flocks and herds, just as you have said, and also give me your blessing." The people of Israel lived in Egypt for 430 years. At the end of 430 years, to the very day, all of the Lord's people marched out of Egypt just like an army. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud. It guided them on their way. At night, he led them with a pillar of fire. It gave them light so they could travel by day or at night. The pillar of cloud didn't leave its place in front of the people during the day, and the pillar of fire didn't leave its place at night. God knew Pharaoh would soon change his mind and try to get his slaves, the Israelites, back. So God told Moses to have the Israelites walk back toward Egypt and then camp at a special place near the Red Sea. God had a plan. He wanted to lure Pharaoh into a trap. Pharaoh will think the people of Israel are wandering around the land. They don't know which way to go. The desert is all around them. I will make Pharaoh's heart stubborn. He will chase them, but I will gain glory for myself because of what will happen to Pharaoh and his whole army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites camped by the Red Sea. The king of Egypt was told that the people had gotten away. Then Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them. They said, "What have we done? We've let the people of Israel go. We've lost our slaves and all the work they used to do for us." So he had his chariot made ready. He took his army with him. The Lord made the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, stubborn. So he chased the Israelites who were marching out boldly. The Egyptians went after the Israelites. All of Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen and troops went after them. They caught up with them as they camped by the sea. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up. There were the Egyptians marching after them. The Israelites were terrified, and they cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Why did you bring us to the desert to die? Weren't there any graves in Egypt? What have you done to us for bringing us out of Egypt? We told you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians.' It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die here in the desert."
So 2 things I want to point out. It says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now, I want you to keep in mind, God never changes free will. So though he may have tempted Pharaoh or influenced him, he would never change his mind. So what that could be said is, you know, it's like if you're put in a situation to choose between right and wrong. Now, you may say that you feel compelled to pick one because obvious, like, I hate to use that example. I think something else. Okay, let's use an example. Let's just say, like, somebody came up to you and said, "I'm going to give you $10 million. All you have to do is press this button." And somebody random will die. You don't know this person. You never met them. All you do is press this button. $10 million is yours. Oh, that's tempting, right? I could change my life doing that. I could build a lot of churches. I could bring a lot of people to God, send a lot of Bibles out, go on a lot of mission trips. I could do a lot of good with that money. I could save a lot more lives than one. I could bring vaccines they need in Africa, but is it worth making the wrong decision and killing one life? It's a dilemma, right? So, of course the answer is no. But you may be tempted to if you're tempted by money. And so there's the temptation. Here's the offer. You think of it like that. Maybe it's not greed for you. For Pharaoh, it's obviously power. So his heart was stubborn that he was losing power, losing people, losing his slaves, his lifestyle. It would be a lot harder because of this. So he felt like he was losing his influence. But for you, it could be money. It could be drugs, alcohol. It could be power.
Lust.
What?
Lust.
It could be lust. There's a lot of things. So that's kind of the dilemma he's in. Secondly, is this line. When they see the Egyptian army coming after them, outnumbering them, tons of swords, best weaponry, horses, etc. They say to Moses, they start whining. They go, "Why did you bring us to the desert just to die? Why did God do this? Why did God send us out here just to die? Fix it." That's what they will do for like the next 5 chapters. So get used to it. They just continue to complain and moan against God. Every time something bad happens, like the littlest thing, it could be, "We've only had bread to eat. We haven't had any meat. We want meat. Why did you send us out here to die with no meat?" And they just whine like that for a long time. They never get the point of to trust God. And it takes them a good 40 plus years to stop whining and trust God. So, did you end here? Mm-hmm. Moses answered the people. He said, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm. You will see how the Lord will save you today." And you think they learn. "Do you see those Egyptians? You will never see them again. The Lord will fight for you. Just be still." Then the Lord spoke to Moses. He said, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people of Israel to move on. Hold your wooden staff out. Reach your hand over the Red Sea to part the water. Then the people can go through the Red Sea on dry ground. I will make the hearts of the Egyptians stubborn. They will go in after the Israelites. I will gain glory for myself because of what will happen to Pharaoh, his whole army, his chariots, and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am Lord. I will gain glory because of what will happen to all of them." The angel of God had been traveling in front of the Israel army. Now he moved back and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved away from them. Now it stood behind them. It came between the armies of the Egyptians and the Israelites. All through the night the cloud brought darkness to one side and light to the other. Neither army went near the other all night long. Then Moses reached out his hand over the Red Sea. All that night the Lord pushed the sea back with a strong east wind. He turned the sea into dry land. The waters were parted. The people of Israel went through the sea on dry ground. There was a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians chased them. All of Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. Near the end of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud. He saw the Egyptian army and threw it into a panic. He kept their chariot wheels from turning freely. That made the chariots hard to drive. The Egyptians said, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for Israel against Egypt." Then the Lord spoke to Moses. He said, "Reach your hand out over the sea. The waters will flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and their horsemen." So Moses reached his hand out over the sea. At sunrise, the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians tried to run away from the sea, but the Lord swept them into it. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen. It covered the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the people of Israel into the sea. Not one Egyptian was left. So no one survived. Secondly, God was fighting for them. God did not need Moses at all. Moses' hand being stretched out did nothing. But God chooses to use people, and all throughout the Bible, He chooses to use us to display His power. So something can be said of that. Now, even though He was fighting for them, He doesn't change free will. So He caused them to be stubborn and stuff. Again, influence. He's never going to change free will. And when God looks down from His pillar of cloud, that's figuratively, God's everywhere and omnipresent, knows past, future, present. But, it just gives context to the story here. Those words aren't found exactly.
Right here?
Yeah.
Moses led the people away from the Red Sea. Since the Israelites were really free from Egypt, they headed toward Canaan. Canaan. The land God had promised them. But the Israelites weren't happy marching all day, and they started to complain. So Moses and Aaron spoke to all the people of Israel. They said, "In the evening you will know that the Lord brought you out of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord. He has heard you say you aren't happy with Him. Who are we? Why are you telling us You aren't happy with us." Then Moses told Aaron, "Talk to the whole community of Israel. Say to them, 'Come to the Lord. He has heard you speak against him.'" While Aaron was talking to the whole community of Israel, they looked toward the desert. There was the glory of the Lord appearing in the cloud. The Lord said to Moses, "I have heard the people of Israel talking about how unhappy they are. Tell them, when the sun goes down, you will eat meat. In the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." That evening, quail came and covered the camp. In the morning, the ground around the camp was covered with dew. When the dew was gone, thin flakes appeared on the desert floor. They looked like frost on the ground. The people of Israel saw the flakes. They asked each other, "What is that?" They didn't know what it was. Moses said to them, "It's the bread the Lord has given you to eat. Here is what the Lord has commanded. He has said, each one of you should gather as much as you need. Take 2 quarts for each person who lives in your tent." The people of Israel did as they were told. Some gathered a lot and some gathered a little. When they measured it out, those who gathered a lot didn't have too much, and those who gathered a little had enough. All of them gathered only what they needed.
It's a great story, right? What can we learn from this? Don't let pride take control of you. One thing we can take a couple lessons from Moses, obviously, but what I get from Pharaoh is that he let pride take over his life, and he let that pride of his power, and he did this himself, and he can do this, and those aren't miracles. My guys can do the same thing. We can explain this away. And he let himself be shut out to God, and it got so bad to the point where even when he saw these incredible miracles firsthand, it wasn't enough to convince him to worship the God of Israel, because his heart was so hardened to being against him and against the Israelites. And that happens today all the time, where we let pride get the best of us. If we can explain it, we'll take any explanation besides God. We will either believe in the Big Bang, or the Earth's billions of years old, or and it goes on and on, where we believe all these theories out there, instead of what's always proven to be true, which is the Bible. And every historical claim and evidence just continues to back it up. And a book that's written thousands of years ago and spans thousands of years is proven to be right. So don't let your pride get in the way of doing what's right, or believing and having faith in what is already built into you. Next lesson is, no matter what your past is, don't let it slow you down. Moses was a murderer who was raised as the prince of Egypt. And though he doubted his own abilities, he still went on behalf of God and his people to free them from slavery. This is somebody who didn't grow up with them, right? He wasn't a part of their community. He was an outcast of his own community. He was an outcast of the Egyptians because of the murder he committed, and was raised pampered. And here he is going to the Hebrewites as a newfound believer in this religion. He hasn't even faithfully been devoted to God, and he was still able to be used despite his sin, despite his upbringing, despite the handicap of his speech impediment, not being able to speak well. He was still able to be used and become considered to be one of the greatest leaders of the entire Bible, and nobody like him has ever come again, as the Bible says. So no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what your circumstances are or what your past is, don't let it slow you down from doing what's right now. So follow your heart. Follow your heart in prayer. Follow what God puts on your heart, and don't be slowed down by your past. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there won't be naysayers saying, who are you to say that when you've gone through this, or you've done this, or why are you trying to act better than the rest of us when you used to do this, or what, you're too good to have a beer with us, what, you don't like looking at girls anymore? You'll hear tons of terrible things from your friends, or so-called friends, or other people around you when you try to change your life for the better. But don't let it hold you back, and don't let your past hold you back. Just because you were that way doesn't mean you have to be this way now. When I get that, I tell people, yeah, man, I did used to say you're right, but I don't even know that guy anymore. That was a different me. And you can definitely say whatever you want, but that's the truth. And I'm a new creation through God and through the blood of Jesus. And I know that, and I know that it may take convincing for some of the people around me, rightfully so, because I'm still a sinner. I was a sinner, and I definitely didn't have the Holy Spirit through me back then. So if I have to build trust and relationships up, that's fine. But I'm not going to be influenced to make poor choices because of my past. Whether you were a prince of Egypt, a murderer, adulterer, drug addict, alcoholic, woman chaser, it doesn't matter. It's never too late to change. The worst thing you can do is continue to let your heart harden in sin and meet the same fate as Pharaoh. That's the last thing you want to do. Because that's all sin will do, is just keep leading you into that temptation and hardening your heart to the gospel, to the truth, to the light. You'll just keep following that darkness, and you eventually will realize you don't know how to find your way back. And that's the last thing you want, because tomorrow's not promised, and I hate to be a broken record with that, but any day could be your last. Don't put it off till tomorrow. Don't say, I kind of believe in God, I want to look into that when I get older. We don't know if you have till you're older. If He's putting that call in your heart now, He's putting that urgency in your heart for a reason. That's the scariest thing you can say is, I'll wait till I'm older, because God's going to get to you on judgment and be like, you knew the truth. You felt it. It was in you. Why did you turn away from that conviction? You don't want that. So, I don't want to be hard on you guys. I know I'm taking this to a preaching level, but I just want to make sure you hear the lesson here, and for the longest time I thought God couldn't use me. And when I looked at the Bible, I saw there was people who were drunks, adulterers, murderers, any sin you can think of has been committed by one of God's chosen people. So don't think He can't use you. If He can use all these men to His glory and to be the greatest man of all time, He can use you. We don't remember great King David as just an adulterous man who had somebody killed. We don't remember Moses as a murderer. We remember as a man who parted the sea, a man who followed God. And the same can be said about any of us when we follow God. It's never too late to break that mold of your past and to show people a new you. Don't feel stuck. Thanks for joining us for Bible study, though, guys. Really excited as we talk about the journey of the Israelites into the desert, the Hebrews into the desert, and how they learned to trust God, and how Moses gets super annoyed with them. And I think we even get to talk about the Ten Commandments in our next chapter. So that's going to be really interesting as we talk about how those Ten Commandments are relevant today, or if they are. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for joining. Please like, share, comment. Go to YouTube, subscribe, Facebook, Today's Disciples for both. We always appreciate everything you guys do in joining us for our Bible studies. And we'll be here next Thursday at 7. You can join us on the couch. Grab a cup of coffee, a donut, just tune in on your phones, and we'll get into the Book of God. See you guys then.